Hey, what's going on, guys? Zephyr here, and welcome back to another video of the Let's Create Prison series. This is episode 4, my bad, not 5. 5 will be coming out later. This is episode number 4, and in today's video we're going to start by creating an ID system so we can specify each player to do specific commands when they do a certain action. Like, for example, if they come to this rebirth and they grab the item out of here, it'll be able to specify that player specifically once we have it implemented, that way that it's not executing it for the closest player. So like if there's someone standing right here and I grab something out of here, it'll specify to me specifically, and not the other player that might be standing right next to them, or next to this mob here. So yeah, I will go jump into that and I'll be right back. Alright guys, and we are back briefly. I just want to show you the ID system real quick. If you guys haven't seen this, this is also displayed in my players online counter on my videos. Go ahead and check that out. This is a simple layout, just an impulse with a chain on top, observer looking at this redstone with this comparator coming out of this repeating, which also has 3 more chain command blocks on top of it. So we'll just start over here. This impulse is doing a scoreboard objectives, remove ID, and then this chain is doing scoreboard objectives, add ID dummy. So this will remove it and then add it back. And then if we come over to this repeating, it is constantly testing for all players, so just test for at all. Then it'll be scoreboard players, add at all, ID 0. And then this one is going to do executing at the closest player who has a score of ID equals 0. That's what this first statement says. And then the tilde 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 is just their current location. It's going to do a scoreboard players add, and then ID count. This is basically, you can replace a player's name here. This is just almost like a phantom player, a person who doesn't exist, and we're just going to use them for this scoreboard, but it's going to add 1 to them. And then this one up here will do scoreboard players operation. The closest player who has a score of 0 on the ID scoreboard, it's going to set their ID scoreboard equal to the player named ID count, who's also on the ID scoreboard. So this will be constantly running, and what it does is just how it counts is it'll add everybody to 0, which will put them on the scoreboard. And this one, well, if there is a player who has a score of 0, then it will add 1 to the ID, which will start off. Let me show you guys briefly. On the side there, you see how there's ID count 1, and then mine is equal to, or is also 1. If there was a second person who would join the world, then it would set me to 1, and then it would set the other person to 2, and ID count would also be 2. Because what this does is, if there's a person with 0, then it will add 1 to the ID, and then set the closest player who has a score of 0 equal to that ID count, and it will go up to 11 because realms can only hold up to 11 people, which is actually 10, but not including the owner. Alright, and the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the layout set up for the ID count system so that we can set the whole system, or start getting it all together. And yeah, I'll do just a simple setup and I'll be back with you guys. Alright, and we're back, guys. And so this is what I got set up. Simple explanation of this real quick before I show you how to build it is, this is basically just a system that'll turn off a huge command block line. Like, for example, if I have a huge command block line like this long, which it'll probably be longer, but instead of having this constantly run and have a single line for each different player, which is what each of these are, like this ID 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through 11, instead of having these constantly run, they will only be turned on when there is a player that matches that ID on the server. So like here, if I show you, since I am set to 1 on the side there and ID count is set to 1, if I go ahead and just do scoreboard players set, and then I'll do add as ID. If I set me to 2, see, now this one turns on. This one is still on because ID count is technically kind of a player, so it's still activating. But yeah, so now if I set me to 3, 2 will turn off and 3 will turn on. But it'll basically, if there's 5 people on, then this one will turn on, or number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will all be turned on. which will be activating these command block lines, which are just going to be needs redstone, and then I'll have whatever command inside of them. And let me just reset this actually. Yeah, so it just allows me to prevent having 11 lines of command blocks constantly running if there's only, let's say, one person on the realm. Which hopefully this does turn into a realm when we're done, we will see. But hopefully it will become a world that you guys can come and join once it's ready. Let me just show you this real quick, how this command works. It's very simple. It's just a test4 command. Test4 @p, and then in the brackets you want scores equals curly bracket ID equals 1 curly bracket, and then just make sure it's all close. So you have a square bracket on either end of this and curly bracket on either side of the ID equals 1. And then that is oh, let me turn it to always active. These are all turned to always active. I forgot to turn this one. I just have it set at 5 ticks because it's going off 4 times per second, which is still pretty fast, but it will save a little bit of lag, or prevent a little bit more lag. Anything that you can do to prevent lag will definitely help, especially if you're going on a big build. But yeah, and then these are just the same going down the line. So instead of ID 1, this is now ID 2, ID 3, ID 4, all the way down to you get ID 10 and ID 11. And like I said, these are all always active, and then I will just activate these command block lines as players join the realm. I'll work on this a little bit more once we get everything laid out how we want it to be built. This is especially going to be made specifically for the teleports or the different buying shops at spawn. That's mainly what this is going to be used for. It will be used for some other things, not quite sure exactly what the ID system is going to be used for, but yeah, this is a upcoming project. I just wanted to get it started so that we can work on it when we get to it. The next thing I'm going to work on is a little simple system over here for the trees, for placing down the saplings so that players don't have to manually place them down, and then it just prevents any other things that I don't really want to deal with. I'm not really going to go into what I mean, but I'll just work on a system for placing down saplings, and I will show you guys what I got when I get there, and I will be back. Alright guys, and we're back. So here's the tree placer that I made over here. Here, let me go ahead and set myself, sorry, give me just a second. Tree placer set me back down to 0. So this is just a little tree placer that I got set here, these 5 command blocks, and then this additional one. I made a new scoreboard, as you can see on the left side of the screen there. It's called tree placer, and this is simply just adding all players a 0 to the scoreboard so that they're added to the scoreboard so that to make sure that the commands work. And then for these 5 command blocks, I'll show you what we got in here. So this is executing at all with a score of tree placer equals 0, and then it's detecting if 2 blocks underneath them there's an element 2 block, and if that's true, then it's going to set block at their current location a sapling with a data value of 0. Now let me show you what that means. So since this element block, here we'll do this one, since that is 2 blocks, if I stand on this grass block, as you see, it sets a oak sapling, because I'm technically level 1, but it's just 0 on the scoreboard. But it's detecting, since I have a score of 0, if 2 blocks under me there's that helium block, and if that's true, then it will place a sapling, and that works for all of these. So like if I just go around, there's sapling, 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 and I'll just run around these real quick just to show you guys. As you can see, there are saplings there. And then if you level up your tree placer, if I go ahead and add myself tree placer 1, go ahead and add myself 1, now you'll be leveling up to the next tree, which is a spruce sapling. And I can just go ahead and run over all these. I can go over here too. All of these work. I could just replace the old ones if I wanted to. And yeah, see, that'll work. And if I go up to the next one, so technically level 3, but it says 2 on the scoreboard, then we go up to birch. Got a little bit of birch trees there. Add one to me, so this is level 4. Now I'm getting jungle saplings. And if I get to level 5, which, like I said before, it's just showing 4 because it started at 0. Now we get acacia saplings. Pretty simple. I don't know if I showed you the full command before, or the other ones, but these other ones are doing the same thing as this first one's. Like this first one's executing at a player of score 0, and then setting a sapling with a data value of 0. And then this next one is executing at all with a score of 1, then it's setting the sapling with 1, and it goes up to, say, the score of 2, set sapling data value 2, and then 3 and 3, and then 4 and 4. I'll probably make a score system just to make sure if for whatever reason it glitches out and puts them to 5 or above, it'll set them back down to 4, just to ensure that it does work. But yeah, and if I were to go to back down to this first one, it goes back to the original. And yeah, pretty simple. I don't know what else to say. Pretty simple design. It's not hard to make. And you could do this with a bunch of other things. I'll probably use a similar method in the crops farm over here. I've got a similar method already for just turning this into tilled soil. I don't know if I showed you guys this, but I have a similar method over there, which I will get to in the next video of how I did this, and I'll make some level ups. But yeah, and I will be back in just a minute, so hang tight and we'll see you then. Alright, you guys, if you did enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe, leave any comments if you have any questions. I will get to more in the next video, but if you guys did like this video, please make sure to do all those things, and I will see you guys next time. This has been Ziffer, and peace out.